My name's Travis Bull Johnson. I'm running for Congress against Michelle Fishbach.
There's no money in ending war. There's no money in limiting government. To me, part of what makes America great are our small businesses, our small farms, and that's what's getting squeezed out by the establishment politicians.
That's why I say, raise cattle and not taxes. And my name's Travis Bull Johnson.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Bull. Welcome to Independent is Power, episode 35. Couple things we're going to talk about this morning that I wanted to touch about, and the big one is the news coming out with Dominion voting systems this week. They had two big cases come up with them. The first, of course, was the suing Fox for defamation, and Fox decided at the last moment to settle and basically pay close to $800 million to Dominion, rather than have to defend themselves in court on these libel suits. Now, what's very important to remember here is, as media, they've got quite a bit of leeway. The only time they can really be found liable is if they broadcast something that they knew to be false. I mean, they basically lied on purpose. The fact that they were saying, hey, you know what, these Dominion machines are faulty, they can be hacked, they're a part of this big fraud, this big steal. The fact that they decided, rather than to go to trial, they decided to pay $800 million rather than letting all of their people who would have been involved in this decision be disposed in public, kind of makes me take a second thought and second look at this whole thing with Dominion. I mean, for them to be willing to do that, I mean, that's telling me they really knew that what they were saying was not true. That's only half of what happened with Dominion this week, or of half of what happened that was related to Dominion this week. The other one is Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell did this big symposium a couple years ago where he presented all of this data, all of this information supposedly from Dominion voting machines to show that there was fraud through the voting machines in 2020. At the time, he offered a $5 million reward to anybody who could prove his information was not correct. That anybody who could prove that the data he was presenting did not actually show that there was fraud. There was a Trump supporter who was a computer forensic expert, who then decided to start looking at this information. Well, a arbitrator, because of course this guy said, hey, here's your information, this is BS. Lindell said, no, I'm not paying it. So by their agreement, or by this contract that Lindell put out for this reward, it had to go to binding arbitration to decide on who was correct. The binding arbitrator not only said that, yes, this information does not prove fraud from the 2020 election, it is not even actually from the 2020 election. So this whole thing, this whole house of cards that Mike Lindell built, basically just came tumbling down because he didn't even have the information he said he had. Little less did it say what he said it said. I really expect this to be more issues going down the line for Mike Lindell, because now I foresee people who paid good money to go to the symposium. I see them filing fraud complaints or lawsuits. I mean, you know, they can even be some of them will probably even be nuisance lawsuits just there to make a point. But yeah, so everything that Mike Lindell, and he's been one of the biggest people out there screaming about the Dominion voting machines, has turned out to be false. Fox, who were saying made up all these stories, basically saying about how these Dominion voting machines were hackable and the Chinese were doing it, and the election was stolen through through these voting machines, rather than defend themselves in court, figured it was best to pay almost $800 million. You don't pay that kind of money if there's any chance at all that you're going to win the lawsuit. Okay? Because the fact of the matter is, Dominion is still a relatively small company. They were suing for $1.6 billion. But for a small company, it would have been hard for a jury to be able to award that much money to a small company, which is probably why they decided to take the settlement on their end. But to me, this lends real credibility to the fact that maybe the Dominion voting machines weren't an issue. I mean, because so far, I mean, the court was a perfect opportunity Fox had and all the backers of this had to say, hey, Fox wasn't lying. Here, look, here's the information. They had the opportunity to pull in these Dominion programmers and everything else and depose them under oath onto whatever back doors, whatever may have been there. They chose not to do so. They chose not to bring anything more to the light, which again really makes me say, hey, you know what? Maybe these Dominion voting machines weren't the issue. So, I mean, I'd really love to know what some of your input is. Our comments are open. If you look at a bottom ticker, you'll see that we have a ticker running for constitutionalrepublicparty.us. They are sponsoring this week's show. For those of you who do not know, that is a new third party that is formed that is based off of small government and leave you, the American people, alone. It's about getting back to the Constitution. It's about getting back to the smallest government needed to protect our rights, which is basically what the government is for. I mean, their only purpose should be to protect the rights of the American people. And so please go to constitutionrepublic.party.us and take a look at what they have to say. As a disclaimer, I am the chair of that party, so I'd really love to know your comments and anything on that as well. Now, if you took a look at this week's pre-show or the tag we put out, the picture, it was a farmer and a cow standing along a fence line, and the farmer's looking at proposed EPA regulations, and he's like, how am I supposed to harvest methane? And the cow holds out his hoof and says, here, pull my hoof. That was kind of a joke, but at the same time, I have a friend of mine in Washington State who we're talking about livestock this week, and she informed me that this past year, Washington State was playing with the idea of a $200 per head livestock fee. Now, I was unable to find whether this was a one-time fee per head, whether this was an annual fee, or what. But they basically wanted to charge an environmental fee of $200 per head of animals to address climate change in Washington State. Here in Minnesota, why is that important to us? Why should we care about what's going on in Washington State? Well, in case you haven't been paying attention to the news yet, Minnesota is quickly starting to become California 2.0 or West Coast 2.0. So what happens on the West Coast, we do definitely need to keep our eyes on, because St. Paul and Minneapolis seems to be the direction they want to go. They want to be little California, which I don't understand, because if you look at our population surveys and everything else, California has been losing people left and right, while freedom-centered states like Florida have been gaining people left and right. We got lucky here in Minnesota not to lose a congressional member this year with the census. But if St. Paul keeps on pushing this California version 2.0, I can't see us making it through the next decade without losing a congressional representative, which is big for our voices in D.C. So those are a couple of the big topics I wanted to talk about this week. I'm looking here. I'm not seeing a whole lot of Normally, I got some feedback from you guys. You guys are quiet today, so I haven't gotten much on there. So please come forward with your comments, your questions, your concerns. I'm an open book. Ask me anything you have, any question you may have. Some other things going on. For those of you who may have missed it, I was on the radio show with the Disrespected Trucker Thursday night. Disrespected Trucker is Jeremy Johnson. He's a great guy. He was very much involved in the planning and the execution of the People's Convoy, the convoy on Washington, D.C. by the truckers to protest these COVID mandates and some other issues facing the trucking industry. Jeremy's been a good friend of mine, and he called me last week. He said, "Bull, let's talk." So what you got, man? So I really want to help you with your new party. What can I do? How do I help you help grow that party? And we talked a little bit, and then he came back and said, "You know what? I've got my show. Come on my show. Come talk about that a little bit. But more than that, we're going to get together and we're going to do some joint projects. The first of which will be a Twitter Spaces that we're going to be doing this Tuesday night. Please keep an eye on our Facebook as well as our Twitter accounts for more details on that. But yeah, we're going to do a Twitter Spaces show on Tuesday night, and then we're also looking at some TikTok collaborations that we're working on to build the name of the new party and to build support for that party, because as a few people have been saying in the last few weeks, the GOP is dying. I mean, they're dying on the vine, especially here in Minnesota. In Minnesota, the GOP is almost to the point where they're now not even relevant. So what are we going to do? Who's going to replace what the GOP used to stand for? And I say used to stand for because they don't anymore. I had this argument or this debate on another group I'm a member of this week with a bunch of Trump supporters, and they were saying how great this was that Trump did that, and it got to the point where I had to educate them. And I had to pull them aside and say, okay, let's look at this for a second. The first 2 years of Trump's presidency, you had a GOP House and a GOP Senate. And in that time, you still added $2 trillion to the national debt. The last 2 years of Trump's presidency, you had a Democratic House, but you had a GOP Senate. Okay, so you still had a emergency brake there, and you added $5 trillion to the U.S. deficit for a total of $7 trillion. So when you come up here and you talk about Biden spending, and yes, Biden is spending your money and my money like it's going out of style. Truth of the matter is, his amount of spending is still a drop in the bucket compared to what President Trump did. So don't come up here and say President Trump is the conservative standard bearer. Okay, President Trump was not about small government. He was not about government who did not control the people. Quite the opposite. I mean, President Trump was very authoritarian, whether you like it or not. Many of you like it because he was authoritarian towards the views that you have. And the thing is, you can't have it both ways. You can't have an authoritarian president and freedom at the same time. Because freedom also means people doing things that you don't approve of, that you don't like. Because they are free, they have liberty, they have their own choices, as long as they're not hurting other people. That is freedom. And President Trump didn't stand for freedom. President Trump got out here and said, take the guns first and due process second. How is that in any way what the Republican Party used to stand for? So when I say the Republican Party is dead, dying on the vine, that's what I'm talking about, because there is a very good chance that he will be the GOP presidential candidate in 2024. Is that what you want from your America? Do you want bigger, more authoritative government? Do you want more restrictions as long as they're your type of restrictions? Or do you want true, dangerous freedom, true liberty, where you can kind of make your own decisions, where you don't have a nanny state? Guys, the ball's in your court. What do you want from your country? What do you want this country to be? Do you want this country to be a Putin or a Chinese style lead from the top? What we say goes, because that's the direction we're heading. Another perfect example of that in the state house this week, and it's my turn to beat up the DFL a little bit. The DFL has another proposal for our elections. What their proposal is that in order for a person's name to appear on the ballot for a primary election, they need to have received at least 30% of the support in their nominating convention for that party. Here's the problem with that. And we saw that or heard about that here in CD7. CD7, the congressional candidate who is Miss Wilson, who is looking at running against Michelle Fischbach, asked to be considered for endorsement. In order to be considered for endorsement, for her to even ask for endorsement, she had to sign an oath saying that she would not primary Michelle if she lost. Okay, so they're trying to take that voice away from the people at all. Now you have this very small committee in these conventions who decide who gets to ask for endorsement, and basically they can write whatever rules they want. Now this new law that the state Senate is looking at passing, or that the state legislature is considering right now, would basically put even more power in their hands. And these guys can go back and say, well, before we can consider you for endorsement, you're going to have to donate $50,000 or $100,000 to a Republican Party so you can show us that you can raise money. And just to be able to primary, and they would have to do that just to be able to ask for endorsement, just so they had the opportunity to primary. I mean, you want to talk about pay for play? That's exactly what they're doing. They're pushing more and more so they have control over who the people can choose. You take what they're doing there. Now you add the 10% that they're pushing up to keep third parties off of the ballots. Okay, they are basically trying to do the same things that you see in Iran, that you see in China, that you see in all these communist-led countries, where they get to choose who you get to vote for. That's not a real election. All that power, all that control is up top, and they choose who they deem worthy to be on the ballot. And that's who you get to choose from, not the people. And again, I think this is wrong. I think it would be great if they did this. Would it be great for my party? Of course it would be. So why am I not backing it? Because it's best for the party? Because it's not best for the country. It's not best for the people. The people deserve choices. And they're doing everything they can to limit your choice. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Okay, because it is up to you. The only power the government has is a power that we, the people, have given them. And people don't seem to understand that we, the people, can take that power back. But it's up to us. It's up to us to demand it back. It's up to us to say, you know what, government, you are out of control. We're going to put people up there who are going to bring this back to the size and scope of government that the original founders planned, that the original founders intended. We're going to bring this back to where more decisions are made on the local level by local communities, and not somebody in St. Paul, not by somebody in D.C. who have no idea what's going on in our local areas. But only you can make that decision. Only you can force that issue. And only you can do it by deciding to turn your back on the two-party system and saying enough is enough. I guess I'll get off my soapbox, but you know what? It's my show, it's my soapbox. So I guess I can get on there every once in a while. But hey, you know what? That's my point of view for this week. Thank everybody for showing up. Remember, guys, I mean, the name of the show, Independent is Power. That's because it is. I mean, it's up to you to be independent and exercise your power. You don't have to be a sheep. Okay, you can be the lone wolf. You can be the one out there doing your own thing. If you want to be a sheep, then be a sheep. But don't blame anybody else when you're led to the slaughterhouse. Everybody have a great day. Remember, independent is power. This is Bull signing off, and have a great day, everybody.